The moment it happened, Colt McCrae didn't even have time to think, only to react. The shale ridge gave way under her boot, a sharp crack echoing through the quiet valley as bits of rock tumbled and clattered down the steep drop. She let out a startled gasp, her arms pinwheeling as she lost her balance. Colt lunged forward with the reflex of a man who'd spent his entire life reacting faster than trouble could strike. His hand shot out, strong fingers closing around her forearm, his boots digging into the dirt as he hauled her back from the lip of the ravine. Her body collided with his chest in a soft thud that carried all the desperate weight of a woman who'd nearly fallen too far, too fast. He felt the sharp hitch of her breath as he steadied her, his other hand instinctively moving to her back, keeping her upright as the wind pushed at them from the open stretch of land below. "Easy," he murmured automatically, though his own pulse hammered hard enough he could hear it in his ears. "Got you." She didn't answer at first. Her head was down, forehead almost brushing his shirt. He could feel the tremor running through her, not fear exactly, but the leftover shake of adrenaline. When she finally raised her face, her eyes were wide and bright, a startling mix of shock and something almost like wonder. Her lips parted, breath coming quick, and in a voice so soft it barely rose above the sigh of the Wyoming wind, she whispered, "Don't stop." Colt froze. He thought she meant the pain. He thought she meant his grip, too rough from the panic of catching her. He had hauled people out of harm's way before, calves stuck in brush, ranch hands pinned under fallen timber, but he'd never been accused of being gentle about it. His hold tightened by instinct, and he flinched, loosening his fingers at once. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he stammered, which was unusual for him. Colt McCrae wasn't the kind of man who stumbled over his words. "Didn't mean to grab you that hard. You all right?" She shook her head, and for a second he thought she meant no, she wasn't okay, maybe she'd twisted her ankle or hit her knee. But then she looked up fully into his face, and the expression she wore made his chest feel too small to hold his heart. "No," she said softly. "I mean, don't stop holding me." The wind stilled. Or maybe it didn't, maybe Colt was just too stunned to feel it anymore. The sunset behind her painted the world in a wide wash of amber and gold, the sky stretching forever toward the mountains in the distance. He could see every detail of her face in the fading light, the way her mouth curved gently downward in shy worry, the flush touching her cheeks, the fine bits of dust caught in her lashes from the near fall. She was close enough that he could see the quick rise and fall of her breath, close enough that the warmth of her body seeped through the fabric of his shirt. He swallowed, the sound loud in his throat. He wasn't used to this. Feeling a woman's breath against him, feeling her steady herself with a hand against his chest, not out of necessity but choice. He wasn't used to anyone choosing him. Not like this. Not with something glowing that he didn't know the name for but felt all the same. His hand was still on her back. He realized that only because he felt her shift against his palm, an instinctive lean toward him rather than away. Slowly, carefully, he let his hand stay where it was, unsure whether to move it or freeze altogether. His other hand still held her arm, though much gentler now, his thumb brushing away a smudge of dust on her skin without thinking. Colt cleared his throat, wishing he could drag some sense back into himself as easily as he dragged her from that ravine. Wasn't expectin' that. She let out a small, uneven breath that sounded almost like a laugh, quick, uncertain, but real. Me neither. There was a silence then, but not the kind that felt empty. More like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what they'd do next. The open plains stretched out beneath them in a quilt of amber grasses and long, wavering shadows. The sun was low enough now that the world looked dipped in honey, soft and warm, with the evening chill just beginning to creep in around the edges. Colt became aware, all at once, that he was still standing very close to her. Too close, probably. Or maybe not close enough. She didn't pull away. She didn't even look like she wanted to. Instead, she tipped her face upward again, her eyes finding his with a steadiness that surprised him. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" he asked, frowning slightly. "For saving me," she said simply. "For catching me." His ears warmed beneath the shadow of his hat. Compliments never sat right with him, they felt like ill-fitting boots. He scratched lightly at the back of his neck with his free hand. "Did what anyone would have done." "Maybe not anyone," she replied. "But you did." Her gaze held his a moment longer than was friendly, longer than was casual. It made his stomach feel strange, tight, almost fluttering, and he didn't like not knowing what to call the feeling. Was it nerves? Something else? He had never been an expert in naming emotions. Cattle, yes, storms, absolutely, but not whatever this was. He finally let his hand slip from her arm, though slowly, his fingers brushing down to her wrist before he completely released her. She didn't step back. Instead, she steadied herself with her hand still lightly on his chest. She seemed to realize it only after a moment, glancing down at where her fingers rested against him. She didn't move them immediately. Instead, she smoothed the fabric, almost absent-mindedly, before drawing her hand away. "You're shaking," Colt said before he could stop himself. She let out a breathy laugh. "I almost fell into a ravine. I think I'm allowed." "Yeah," he said quietly. "You are." She brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her hair caught the dying sunlight, glowing like something spun from wheat. "You're shaking too." He opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it. She was right. His hands weren't steady, not completely. That rattled him more than anything. He'd been thrown from bulls, shot at, stomped by a horse once, and none of that had made him shake. This, though, a woman whispering for him not to let go, apparently did. "Must have been the surprise of it all," he muttered. Her lips curved into a small smile that pulled something inside him taut. "Which part?" "You know which part," he said, eyes skimming her face. She shifted her weight, the movement subtle but enough to bring them a breath closer. "Maybe I do." Colt felt the ground beneath him again, not the unstable edge of the ravine, but the firm reminder that he was a man who worked the land, knew its rules, and understood the dangers of letting unexpected things take root. He didn't let feelings grow easily. They required tending, patience, and vulnerability, and he had convinced himself long ago he didn't have time or talent for any of that. But standing here with her, her breath warm from where she'd been pressed against him, her eyes reflecting the sun's last light like liquid gold, something in him softened in a way he didn't know was possible. "You sure you're all right?" he asked again, softer this time. She nodded. "Because you caught me." "Yes." He felt that land, that familiar ground, shift under him again, but this time it wasn't the edge of a cliff. It was the edge of something else entirely. "Let's get you back to solid ground," he said. Though his voice lacked its usual firmness. He didn't know if he was talking to her or himself. "We're already on solid ground," she replied gently. "At least, it feels like it." She looked at him then, not startled, not afraid, not embarrassed, but like she was trying to understand something she'd only just discovered. Her eyes softened, and she searched his face the way someone might trace the outline of a map they hoped would lead somewhere worth going. He blinked slowly, a long, grounding pause he needed before he reached out again, not grabbing her this time, not saving her from anything, just offering his hand. A simple gesture. A quiet one. But in the wide-open hush of the plains, in the aftermath of a moment where their bodies had collided and something far deeper had shifted, it felt like opening a door he hadn't realized he'd been standing in front of for years. She looked at his hand, then back at him, and her expression gentled. No hesitation, no doubt. She placed her hand in his. Her fingers fit against his palm as though they belonged there. The wind picked up again, tugging at her hair, brushing dust off the ledge behind them. A hawk cried in the distance, sweeping over the valley in a slow, endless glide. The sun dipped lower, bleeding its last colors across the horizon in a spill of orange and rose that seemed almost too perfect to be real. Colt drew in a slow breath. "Let's walk," he said. "Okay," she answered. They turned from the ravine together, step by step, her hand still in his. Walking wasn't easy on the narrow ridge, not with the loose shale and the slanted ground, but their hands didn't part. She stayed close beside him, trusting him with each careful step, and for the first time in a very long time, Colt felt something settle inside him, something warm and hopeful and frightening in the best way. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know what she felt exactly. He didn't even know what this new, quiet ache in his chest meant. But he knew this: when she whispered "don't stop," something in him had listened. And he wasn't sure he ever wanted to let go.